And if they're going to ask, why does my dog's breath stink or whatever on the internet, I want them to get the information from me. And so if I produce that content in my hospital and create videos and content to share on my website, then when someone does do a Google search, they're actually going to find that information from me in my local area.
Thank you for hopping on here, Dr. Michele Drake. You're just an amazing resource and just a knowledge base for us, and not just our current clients at Genius Vets, but just any practice owner out there in the industry. And wanted to take the time to ask you a couple questions in regards to some pain points that we're hearing a lot of, which is maybe 2 years ago it was gaining new clients and attracting doctors and staff.
Mhm.
But really, what we're seeing now as a focus for a lot of business owners is retaining clientele, as well as dealing with competitors, maybe poaching existing clients that practices are seeing. So, would love to ask you just as a start, especially with you in the Drake Center and maybe even in some other practices that you're seeing nationwide, how do you personally handle competition in your local area?
Yeah. So I'm in an area, San Diego, coastal San Diego, which everyone in the world wants to live here. So one of the places in the world that's highly desirable. So we have also many, many veterinarians. The number of veterinarians I have in my area per capita is way higher than what it should be to be like a super thriving, successful practice. And I would say that we are definitely a super thriving, successful practice. Even this year, when I think most practices have declined in visits, we are still increasing in visits. And I'm not going to say by a long shot, but we have increased in visits this year. And I always tell people that I claw and scratch for every new client I get, and you can be assured that I will do everything I can to retain that client. So as far as competition goes, I've always thought about it's really important to know what's happening. So like when Petco's opened up, when any new hospitals opening up, little urgent VEG opened up across the street for me during COVID. The first one on the West Coast was right across the street from my hospital. And it's always really good to be aware of what's out there. But I always tell people like what I focus on always are the things that I can control. And so I can control what goes on in my business and I can control my marketing for my business. I can't control what everybody else is doing and I don't want to. But really always just focusing on knowing what's out there, but then just really focusing on the inside of our practice. And because I've always run my hospital, and this sounds a little cliche-ish, but if people only knew how important it is, they would put more attention into it. Is that the Drake Center is a mission-driven business, and we have a super strong culture. And so we have a special little funny document inside the Drake Center called the Drake Difference. And I started this probably maybe 20 years ago. So my hospital has been in existence for over 30 years, probably like 32 now. And started this a long time ago. I said, like, I went to my individual teams, like the technicians, the doctors, the front staff. And I said, I want to know, what do you guys think that we should do differently? Or what do we do differently? What do we guys strive for? That every time a client comes in here or a pet comes in here, what are the things that we do differently? And so that we actually have created a document called the Drake Difference. Actually, just happened to pull it up here. And we've adjusted that over the years based on, things have changed and our focus may have changed sometimes or how people get information. But the point is that we use this as an internal document for training and to look back to or look at once a year just to say, is this still really where our focus is? Is this what we're doing? So that every client and every patient that comes to the Drake Center should experience this Drake difference. And so these are the things that we can control inside our building that help us to retain our clients. It's really focusing on each pet and each person as like an individual, not like some sort of like cookie cutter system that we have at the Drake Center. We don't do it that way. The way we educate people, the way we make sure you have written verbal instructions and lots of support on our website with information. These are things that we're constantly working on. So all the time, we're always working on making these things better and improving them. And certainly always focus with the experience that a client and the patient have as they go through the Drake Center. Now, these are the things that I think make us unique. So we're mission driven, we're a strong culture, and then we have a really strong operating system in the hospital of how we deal with issues and opportunities. but also it's a continually addressing alignment in our hospital as well. So what is alignment? And I think this is where so many hospitals just really fail, is that are all the doctors saying the same thing about preventative care? And it's not as if our doctors are like going by some sort of specific playbook. We're not. But when it comes to things like preventative care, or how we take care of our pre-surgical patients, or how we take care of our post-op patients, like these things all must be in alignment. And so when we find something's out of alignment, it's like, hey, I heard this one doctor saying this and one this way. Okay, then at the next doctor's meeting, let's get aligned on these things. When you are aligned as a practice and your doctors are all aligned, your front staff saying the same thing, your technicians discuss the same things, this brings in so much more trust from the client, and they know what the experience is going to be. This requires constant attention, and it means that once a month we're going to like look at the things that we're not aligned on and make sure that we are. So these are some of the things that go into, just the continual, I would say, the not sexy things to run a veterinary hospital, but are so important for the clients, like building the trust and the relationship that you have with them so that we can retain these clients forever.
Yeah, really good insight there. And the next question I want to ask is, it's very unique, for you, especially to go through the growth that you've seen from starting the practice in the '90s, going into the early 2000s, and then to where we are today. So a lot has changed in the industry in that span. So how would you say your strategies changed? Maybe from when you first opened, dealing with competition as a new practice, attracting clients, obviously the different where the industry was different, and then how did you adapt those strategies to like modern day where we do now have the internet to as a resource to help retain these clients and even attract some and stand out from the rest of the competition? But what did you deploy in the beginning, and then what did you see kind of work modern day?
Yeah. So again, my first practice was 1992. It's myself and three employees, and I had a practice that had no street visibility. So the only marketing I had available to me was what happened in my practice. I did go out in the community. I was on the board of the YMCA, which is a really big YMCA here in Encinitas. I did volunteer at the shelter to train their staff on certain things and help out a little bit there. And so my marketing included those things and the yellow pages. It was like that's what I had. And then we tried to do an open house once a year. So really almost all of my new clients came from the yellow pages, the little bit I did in the community as one person. But word of mouth was massive, like massively important. So people sent their friends to us. And why did they send their friends to us? It's because like I bent over backwards to make sure the care and the service was good every time. So that's what I did like way back when, right? And it's important as a business owner to always know like what's going on there. How does our consumer behave? So, the biggest change was in 2008 when the iPhone came out and everyone started getting their information. The customer definitely changed. How they get their information changed. And so if we're not paying attention and staying on top of these things, which it's impossible as a business owner, and then, oh, by the way, I'm also being the veterinarian like 5 to 6 days a week to stay on top of it. But then you've got to find people that you can trust. So one of the reasons I became a co-founder of Genius Vets 9 years ago was because I felt like so many of my colleagues were missing out by not understanding marketing. They thought of it as kind of almost like a bad word, but I'm like, all marketing is like knowing who you are and what a great job you do inside your building and then sharing that with people who might be interested in your service. That's all it is. But the way we market now has changed tremendously. And so I can't keep up on all the ways, strategies, and everything, but I do employ a really great marketing company called Genius Vets. But obviously, whichever company you choose to use, the idea is that you actually know the basics. You should understand the basics so that you can support what's going on. Because one of our co-founders, David Hall, always he shares when we're speaking together, he shares this pie chart of the amount of time someone spends in your building versus outside of your building, as your client. And it's a pretty small amount that they're in your building. So how do you support them when they're outside the building? And that's where your website should be working for you and providing so much information to your clients, in addition to accessibility that your clients may have with you with telemedicine or whatever the other options that you have. The idea is that we continually kind of be aware and then pick and choose carefully the things we're going to start to utilize. So I felt like the appointment scheduling online was very critical. I think that's what all consumers now want. That any doctor's office you're going to now that is remaining even slightly, up to date has an appointment scheduler online. And so we had to struggle for doing that because we had two locations that worked as one business. So it was a tough thing to figure out with our PIM system. But we did find a company that is helping us with this, and we had to adjust a lot of things to make it work. But our clients really want that availability at 10 o'clock at night. They want to be able to go online and make an appointment. So that was one of the things that you have to do to like stay on top of things, and also just continually finding ways for your clients to get information, because you're going to go to the internet, and if they're going to ask why does my dog's breath stink or whatever on the internet, I want them to get the information from me. And so if I produce that content in my hospital and create videos and content to share on my website, then when someone does do a Google search, they're actually going to find that information from me in my local area. So that's the idea of how that works. And that, of course, then reassures them that we do really know what we're talking about. And when they want information, they're going to get it from us. And that's just one more way to tie them to us as their provider of veterinary care.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Drake. I mean, honestly, a wealth of knowledge just in this short span in this video. And I hope practice owners out there are able to take some notes and kind of start utilizing now where the internet kind of seems like an enemy sometimes to practices where, oh, I'm getting bad reviews, like I'm not reaching people, a corporate practice down the street is showing up for everything. But we need to kind of start shifting that to focus on the internet is actually great for my business. It's allowing me to stand out. It's a window into the culture that I've built, which is all going to help with retaining those clients and dealing with competitors that probably also don't put that focus out there through their website. But thank you so much, Dr. Drake. We'll make this a regular occurrence. There's so many more pain points and topics that we could talk about. So we'll look to dive into those over the next couple months. But thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to address some of these.
My pleasure. Anything I can do to help my fellow colleagues, I'd love to do.